If you want to create your own muscle building workout routine, here are the 7 hidden principles you're going to need. You must first ask yourself, what is your main goal? Whether it's going full on hypertrophy, or it's training for strength only, or a mix of both, which goes under the term of power building. Another question is, what is the best training split for you, and how many days are you willing to go to the gym every week? So those are the 2 main questions you want to start asking yourself throughout this video. My own advice I'd like to give is investing in some programs and workout routines that other professionals have made, and understand the layout of how the workouts are set out. And with the 7 hidden principles I'm going to share with you today, they're going to help you understand what a good program actually looks like. And also make sure to leave a workout plan in the link in the description for you to receive completely for free and help you start working out from today. So for our first principle, we're going to be talking about the most important thing is your volume. A lot of people get volume very wrong in the beginning and go ahead and do 30 sets per muscle group per week. So let's define what is volume. Volume is the number of sets you do for each muscle group every single week. And just to understand how simple volume is for beginners, you might just need to have 1 set per muscle group per week, just for beginners to actually see progress in the gym. Now, that's not my advice in this video. We're going to dive on what is the most optimal volume for beginners to use in their workout routines. According to one of the greatest researchers out there in the hypertrophy field, Brad Schoenfeld, has suggested that a range of 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is more than enough for beginners to start building muscle. Now, for many beginners, they like to go for really high volumes, expecting a return on investment on all of their effort, but actually you might lead yourself to an injury rather than building the best physique of your life. So any program you see that goes above 20 sets and is going to the 30 sets range, avoid completely, because you will injure yourself. I had a wrist injury myself because I tried Arnold's workout routine, which consisted of around 27 sets per muscle group per week. And essentially, if it's your first time ever going to the gym and you've never really lifted before, you should obviously start with having 10 sets at the beginning of your weightlifting journey. And throughout your years as a beginner, you can gradually increase your volume to reach to 20 sets per muscle group per week. So now we've covered our first principle of volume. Now let's move on to our rep range. Now rep range will differ from one person to another depending on what your goal is. If your goal is to get stronger and have more strength than actually build muscle, you're gonna have a lower rep range than someone who's trying to aim for hypertrophy and build as much muscle as possible, which goes for a bit of the higher end of our rep range. If you want to be training strength, your rep range is going to lay around 1 to 5 reps each set. However, if you're someone who's targeting hypertrophy, any rep range between 5 to 30 reps is going to help you build muscle as effective as possible. But here's the thing, you hear that advice a lot throughout your social media. 5 to 30 reps, that's such a crazy large rep range. So you must understand that your rep range shouldn't be more than 3 reps in difference. So for example, they tell you that the rep range for hypertrophy can be between 5 to 30 reps. So that means that in that range, hypertrophy can occur. But you need to understand that you don't need to be getting minimum 5 reps and then maximum 30 reps. That's not the advice. The advice is that you can choose rep ranges like 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 12 to 15. Those are different rep ranges and which we use for different exercises. And in this principle, I'm going to share with you what most experts recommend. The lower side of the rep range of 5 to 30 reps is way more recommended for heavy compound lifts. If you're going to be training around 10 to 12 or 8 to 10 reps, we're going to be using that for the machines or the isolation exercises where you can't really go very heavy at. In our third principle, we're going to talk about exercises. A lot of you struggle with the selection of exercises. How do you know what exercises to choose from? What is the best sequence to use for your selected exercises? This might be a bit complicated for many of you, but understanding this is going to be important for you in the future to be able to create your own workout routine, as well as once you buy a workout plan or invest in a workout plan, understand if it's actually worth it or not, and understand why you're doing these certain exercises in your workout routine. Now, my first advice to you is that you should befriend compound exercises. As a beginner, compound exercises are probably your secret weapon right now. Compound exercises help you activate as many muscle fibers as possible, especially when you're a beginner. This helps maximize muscle growth and take advantage of your honeymoon phase. So have a good rule of thumb that majority of exercises should be compound exercises, and 1 to 2 exercises of your workout routine or your session should have isolation exercises to work the secondary muscle groups like your triceps or your biceps. So Karim, tell me, what are the best exercises to use, and how do I know what are the best exercises to use? There isn't really the best exercises. You need to be able to understand how each muscle actually works so that you can understand if an exercise actually works the muscle properly or not. There are 3 plane of movements that most of the muscles work at, and you need to understand that we need to use all 3 to be able to target most of the muscle fibers in each muscle group. There is the sagittal plane, there is a frontal plane, and then there is a transverse plane. You might be so confused, like, what are you talking about? If you don't have background in anatomy, the sagittal plane is basically a movement that's going from anterior to posterior, so from front to back. And the frontal plane is a movement that goes from up to down or from down to up. The transverse plane means it's going either from medial to lateral, and in your terms, it's going to be from left to right or right to left. And of course, with each muscle group, they have specific planes that are worked best at. So having a variation of all 3 planes is the most optimal to be able to maximize the muscle fibers you activate per session. For beginners, please do not stress on the exercise sequence or the exercise selections, because they can be very basic and at the same time be very, very effective. I'm going to even leave a free workout plan in the description for you to have an idea of what a workout routine can look like. So now let's get into our 4th principle, rest time. The general rule for the minimum rest time you need is 2 minutes. However, for your compound exercises, I'd be pushing that to 3 minutes, maybe even 4 minutes. But for beginners, you're probably going to recover much faster than the normal intermediate or advanced weightlifter. So a 2 to 3 minutes is probably recommended on your compound lifts. But when you come for your isolation exercises, 1 to 2 minutes is perfectly fine, because you're targeting smaller muscle groups which can recover much faster than your compound lifts. You activate a lot of more muscles in your compound lifts. And please don't sleep on the importance of rest time, because if you rest effectively and time it as well, your muscles are going to be ready for your next set and hit your weight goals as well. Our next principle, and this is very important, frequency. There's a lot of misconceptions around frequency and thinking that you need to be training more than 2 to 3 times per week. Studies have shown that there is no significant difference between people who have a frequency of training their muscle group 4 times a week compared to someone who's only training it once a week. Something you must understand, that frequency only helps you manage your volume. And as a beginner, you don't have that much volume to be working with. So it doesn't really make sense that you are managing your volume when you don't have much volume to use. So training the muscle group once a week is good enough for a beginner. And as we said, the minimum sets you want per session is 10 sets. So training the muscle group 10 sets per session is good enough for muscle growth. You also must understand that your muscle group requires 48 hours for optimal recovery. So if you're working the same muscle group less than 48 hours, you're actually affecting your muscle recovery, therefore affecting your muscle growth process. So what we learned from this is avoid workout routines that have 2 leg days. Because I've seen so many people come up to me and they're like,
I have 2 leg workout sessions to have the best legs in the world.
My guy, you need to understand that people have 2 leg sessions only because they want to manage their volume, because they're either intermediate or advanced weightlifters. But you, my friend, you're still a beginner. Enjoy having little volume, because later on, you're not going to be enjoying it that much. For our next principle, intensity. Now, a lot of people get confused with how hard am I supposed to be training. A piece of advice I love from Dr. Mike Israel is your effective rep range is actually between 0 to 5 reps in reserve. Now, you might be very confused right now, like, whoa, what is reps in reserve? Those are terminologies you don't really need to know right now, but it's very good to have in mind when you're starting your weightlifting journey. So the effective reps that I'm talking about is that your last 5 reps where you're almost very close to complete muscle failure are the most effective reps for hypertrophy. Now, that doesn't mean you should be training all your workouts all close to 0 reps in reserve. That will accumulate fatigue and you won't be able to continue your workout session. So here's an amazing format that you can use today to understand how hard you should be going for every set. For your compound exercises, make sure you're going to 1 to 2 reps before your form breaks down. There's a terminology we like to use, technical muscle failure. And we do this with compound lifts just so we can prevent injury as well as not accumulate lots of fatigue. And for isolation exercises, we tend to go for 1 to 2 reps away from complete muscle failure. Now for our next principle is very important for your muscle recovery and maximizing your muscle growth. Rest days. I see a lot of beginners posting on their Snapchat story or their Instagram story, no pain, no gain, going 7 days a week with no rest days. If you really think you're going to build muscle by doing that, you're just going to end up overtraining yourself and not going for the next 3 weeks. Now deciding how many rest days you should have depends on how many days you're willing to go to the gym. Now a general rule you need to keep in mind that you must have a minimum of 1 to 2 rest days per week for optimal muscle growth. Many of you beginners might be still students or you have work, so everyone has a really busy schedule. And especially when you're a beginner, you still don't know how to be very consistent. So I don't really advise to go for 6 days or even 5 days per week. If you have the time, go for it. If you don't, stick to 4-day splits or 3-day splits and start getting a hang of going to the gym at first. In my experience, I found that the 4-day splits are actually the best when it comes to balancing your lifestyle, especially when you're a student. Balancing school or uni with gym isn't very easy when you want to be studying every single day. And I actually made a recent video talking about how you can balance uni with gym. And if you haven't already, make sure to give the video a thumbs up as it helps with the algorithm, as well as subscribe for more content like this.